The fall was endless, a symphony of snapping branches and tearing fabric, ending with a sickening thud that stole her breath. Ilara's world fractured into a kaleidoscope of pain and the metallic tang of blood in her mouth. She lay in the cold embrace of the ravine floor, amidst the tangled roots and damp earth, listening to the hurried footsteps fading above. Their laughter, a cruel echo, vibrated through the raw gashes on her skin and the deeper wounds in her soul. They had left her for dead, a broken doll discarded in the wilderness, believing the darkness would consume her. But the darkness was just beginning. The first sensation was the biting cold, a relentless enemy that seeped into her bones. Her clothes were shredded, offering little protection against the late autumn chill. Every muscle screamed in protest as she tried to move, a dull, agonizing throb radiating from her ribs and head. Her eyes, swollen and crusted, slowly opened to a world of blurry shapes and indistinct shadows. The smell of damp soil, decaying leaves, and something else, something sickly sweet and metallic, filled her nostrils. Her own blood. She tried to cry out, but only a dry, rasping gasp escaped her lips. Hours blurred into an eternity. The moon, a sliver of bone-white light, crept across the narrow strip of sky visible from the ravine. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent a jolt of terror through her battered body. She was prey, helpless and exposed. Yet beneath the terror, a spark ignited, a cold, hard ember that refused to be extinguished. It wasn't hope. It was something far more primal, far more dangerous. It was fury. She had to move. The thought was a relentless hammer against her throbbing skull. Inch by agonizing inch, she dragged herself through the muck, her fingers scrabbling at loose rocks and thorny bushes. Each movement sent a fresh wave of agony, but the thought of their faces, their sneering smiles, their careless cruelty fueled her. She found a jagged piece of shale, sharp enough to cut, and clutched it like a lifeline. It wasn't a weapon yet, but it was a promise. Days turned into a torturous blur of survival. She drank from muddy puddles, the water tasting of earth and desperation. She gnawed on roots, her stomach churning, but the hunger was a dull ache compared to the burning fire in her gut. She learned to move with the silence of a wounded animal, avoiding the harsh sunlight, conserving every ounce of strength. The ravine became her teacher, her prison, and her sanctuary. It stripped away everything she was, leaving behind a raw, primal core. Her once soft hands were now calloused, her nails broken, her skin a mosaic of cuts and bruises. Her reflection in a stagnant pool showed a stranger, gaunt, wild-eyed, but with an unyielding steel in her gaze. The first time she saw a human after her ordeal, it was a lone hiker on a distant ridge, a tiny speck against the vast indifference of the sky. She felt a flicker of something she couldn't name, fear, yearning, or perhaps just a reminder of the world she had lost. But the thought was fleeting. Her purpose was clear, etched into her very bones by the cold earth of the ravine. She wasn't just surviving, she was being reborn. When she finally found a path, a barely visible trail winding its way up the sheer rock face, it took her an entire night to scale it. Her muscles screamed, her fingers bled, but she climbed, driven by an almost supernatural resolve. As she pulled herself over the last ledge, the first rays of dawn painted the sky in shades of bruised purple and gray. She stood at the edge of the world, looking down at the sleeping town in the valley below. The town where they lived, the town where they thought she was gone forever. A single tear, cold and bitter, traced a path through the grime on her cheek. It wasn't a tear of sadness, nor of relief. It was a tear of recognition. The old Ilara was dead, buried in the ravine. A new self had emerged, forged in agony and fueled by an infernal purpose. She was no longer a victim. She was the storm, and the storm was coming home.
The town was a grid of flickering amber lights, a deceptive nest of normalcy that smelled of wood smoke and rain-slicked asphalt. They were there, sleeping, breathing the same air she was now reclaiming. Ilara moved through the outskirts like a predatory shadow, her silhouette thin, jagged, and unrecognizable. She didn't head for the main streets. She sought the peripheral darkness, the places where the light didn't reach. She reached her old apartment building, a drab brick structure that felt like a relic from a previous life. That woman, the one who lived here before the ravine, she's gone. Ilara didn't use the front door. She knew the loose latch on the basement window, a flaw she had once complained about, now a gift from her former self. Inside, the air was stale, frozen in time. She stood in her own kitchen, her scarred fingers brushing the laminate counter. She didn't turn on the lights. She didn't need to. Every corner was etched into her mind. She found what she came for in the back of the utility closet, a heavy canvas tool roll and a hunting knife her father had given her for protection. Protection, what a hollow word. She cleaned herself in the dark, the freezing water hitting her raw skin like needles of ice. She didn't flinch. The pain was a tether, a reminder of the death that had to be collected. She dressed in dark, heavy layers, concealing the map of scars that now defined her. As she looked into the cracked bathroom mirror, she didn't see a victim. She saw a countdown. The first name on her list was Miller. Miller, the one with the loud laugh and the weak eyes. He lived in a trailer on the edge of the woods, a place that smelled of sour beer and stagnant intent. Ilara approached the thin metal walls, hearing the low drone of a television from within. She waited, letting the cold settle into her joints. She waited until the lights went out. She waited until the world was silent enough to hear his rhythmic, oblivious snoring. The lock on the trailer door was a joke, a thin click, and the interior opened up like a wound. She moved through the cramped space, the floorboards groaning under her ghost-light weight. She stood over his bed, his smell, that same suffocating scent of cheap tobacco. It triggered a wave of nausea that she instantly crushed with a wall of iron. She didn't use the knife, not yet. She reached out and placed a single, wet clump of moss from the ravine onto his chest. Then she leaned close to his ear, her breath cold against his skin. "The earth in the ravine is very deep, Miller, but it wasn't deep enough." He bolted upright, a frantic, confused sound dying in his throat as he felt the cold steel of the knife pressed against the soft underside of his jaw. The moonlight caught the edge of the blade, and for a second, just one perfect second, he saw her eyes. "Don't scream. Screaming is for the living, and we both know you're already a ghost." He tried to scramble back, his hands fumbling against the sheets, but she was a part of the darkness now, inseparable and inescapable. She watched the realization dawn on him, the way his pupils dilated with a terror that mirrored her own on that final night. "Please," he whimpered, the word a pathetic vibration against the steel. "Please, that's a funny word, Miller. I said it 100 times, and you never once understood the definition." She didn't kill him, not tonight. Death was too quick, a mercy he didn't deserve. Instead, she leaned in and made a single, precise, shallow cut across his cheek, a mark, a brand. Tonight, you sleep with the lights on. Tomorrow, you'll wish you hadn't woken up at all. Tell the others. Tell them the ravine has come back to say hello. She vanished before he could find his voice, slipping out into the rainy night as the first scream finally broke the silence of the trailer park. 1 down, 2 to go. The hunt had officially begun.